Hello, and welcome to AKS Knits and Crochets number 43.
You really have to change the name. That has no. What do y'all think? I don't think it has any oomph, any verb. I came up with the name, but she don't like it.
Tell them. Tell them what it is.
I thought a podcast should be called "Stitches Be Trippin'" because sometimes your stitches do be tripping. They get all up under your nerves.
I told her I wasn't upset about it,
but she doesn't
it didn't ring my bell.
And I'm like, what you come up with?
AKS
Knits and Crochet.
It's a label. Okay, it's a label.
At some point, the podcast is going to have a real name.
Okay, what do you guys think about Stitches Be Tripping? Let us know.
That's I-N apostrophe, no G.
No G. G's are the worst. And on that note, I am Lisa.
I'm Chris.
I knit.
Oh, I crochet.
And we love it all.
Knitting is sorcery.
Knitting is not sorcery. Okay.
That sounds like a mug.
Would you like to go first today, dear sister, or shall I?
Oh, honestly, there's not a lot of news. I'm still working on my handkerchief hem top.
But there is news on that front.
I'm on the third square, the third of a million squares.
You know what we should have done? When you pinned it, we should have taken a picture.
There's a book called, I think it's called something like 4,000 Weeks. And it's like the theories that if you live to 80, that's about 4,000 weeks and life is short and, do the stuff you want to do. I've been working on this for about, 587 weeks. So it is now just like my life's mission.
This is my life now.
But I do have 2 squares finished. So that'll be the neckline. It'll be stitched together like so. And they'll be, shoulder strapped at these points.
Nice.
And then you can see that it's just kind of, you got that drapey, handkerchiefy end kind of thing happening. This is just held together with a couple of pins.
You know what? I do like the way you switch the colors around. I think it is better this way.
I didn't like the 2 greens like right up next to each other. They're not quite right. I actually have this yarn in orange too, and I wanted to do orange ecru and the green. But I didn't have enough skeins of the orange. Don't ask me why I had like 5 or 6 skeins of all the other colors and only 3 of the orange. I can't imagine what I was thinking. That's not like me. First of all, it's an odd number. So either something weird happened or I have some orange balls hiding somewhere. I don't know. But I would have preferred to use the orange. But I don't know. I like it. It works for me. And I just have like the first color block. So the dark green finished on my 3rd square. But at least I have some progress on my 3rd square. Still rippling along. I have to add on my next color. I was going to work on it yesterday, but my hand was hurting a little bit, so I decided not to. I wanted to stitch through it. I was just like, what if my hand hurts? But
why do I have to tell both my mother and my sister that? If your hands are hurting, it's time to give them a break.
Because sometimes your hand's going to hurt. And either you make a handkerchief hem top or you don't.
Pain is a stop sign.
It's so not. Listen, when pain is bad enough to actually stop you, then it's a stop sign. Otherwise, it's more of a speed bump.
You get warnings, though. You get warnings. Oh my God. Okay.
But, one of my hands still hurts, but I'm going to crochet today. Child, let me tell you, this hand's going to have to know who's boss. Because I have approximately 612 weeks left to go on this top.
Okay, that does not constitute medical advice. Neither of us are doctors. Okay.
Oh, maybe I should get one of those copper
fit bracelets.
Yeah.
You know what though? Try using mom's wax thing.
No, that's gonna take too much time. The glove you just put on your hand and keep going. The wax, so it's a paraffin wax dip, and you put your hands in it, and the wax hardens, and it just confers the heat to your hand. You put like some mitts over it, and it just warms up your hands and helps soothe the muscles. But then that whole time you can't do anything with them. No, I would rather the copper fit. Just keep it moving.
Like I said, neither of us are doctors. This does not constitute medical advice. I gotta throw that disclaimer in there. Okay. Moving on. So that's where you are with your
Yeah,
top. I
that's
think it's
my
beautiful
whip.
though. Let me tell you, it's gonna be so worth it. It's gorgeous. So worth it.
I give it a light steam, but I feel like I want to like. I don't know if I want to wet it or if I just want to like iron it because it's still a little like wrinkly.
You know what? I just was reading something the other day, and they suggested another thing you can do is soak a towel and lay it on top of the garment and let it. But it's it's a slow process, so you let the garment absorb the water out of the towel if you don't want to completely soak the garment.
I could just spritz it. I think I would rather spritz it. That seems like a lot of work.
Not like you're a work averse. I mean, you're using a 2.25 millimeter hook.
Yeah,
on lace
this is
weight
my first
yarn.
time using that hook. Like, whoa, it's such a pretty fabric.
Oh, the fabric is gorgeous. Come on,
with plenty of drape. We'll get into that later.
Okie dokie. I don't even want to know until later. That is. Shall I go?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you guys know, it is time for our first fall make-along. And although I was sorely tempted, I did not start my make-along project until August 1st, the day of. I worked around the edges, though. I swatched and all of that. But I did not actually cast on until August 1st, which was really, really fun. So I am working on the Nymphalo top from the Noro 20 magazine. Now, the top as conceived of by the Noro people, they did it in a striping yarn, a self-striping yarn, but when I saw it in my mind, I saw it in a solid color. So I kind of did a visual representation. Crystal's going to laugh. Just go with it.
Me with these things.
No, that's not the one. So I sketched it.
What that was. I saw that laying around the other day.
So I sketched it in my color so I could see it in my color. And I was like, yes, that's my color. Once again, I'm going to say I am not an artist. This is not a perfect sketch, but it gave me something that was a visual representation of what I wanted this thing to look like. So without the stripes and all of that. I still loved it in the single color, the gray. Awesome. Yay. So I got started on it. I only had to cast on the one time because usually when I knit ribbing, I don't pay attention because ribbing is very boring to me. So I almost always end up with, something off in my ribbing. I got the ribbing right on the first try. I took that as an omen that things are generally going to go well. So if you weren't here last week, I did a nice big swatch. I did 2 repeats going across of the lace pattern, and I did a full repeat. You know what? I think I did 2 full repeats going up. So I'd have a nice big swatch to play with, and then I blocked the swatch so I'd see what the final fabric looked like. And my calculations were 100%. You know what? I am a little bit math phobic, so when...
A lot,
yeah, quite a lot. So when I calculate something and it comes out exactly right, I'm always like thrilled. So as I knit my real fabric, it came out to the exact measurement I wanted it to. So it's going to be 26 inches wide.
So gratifying.
Oh
my God.
I was like, yes, my swatch told the truth.
It's almost confusing though, because you're so used to it being off a little bit. It's like when it's exactly right.
What did I do right this time that I didn't do the other time? That's what I always think. I was like, what did I do? What did I do? I ended up, now, as always, I'm not using the yarn that was called for in the pattern. So I did have to go up a needle size to do it. I think they use a US 5 and I'm using a US 7 and a US 6 because they wanted you to do the ribbing in a smaller needle. So I just went down that one size. But in my US 7, I am getting the exact gauge I need and it's coming out exactly right. So I'm knitting along. I had already practiced the lace. So the little issues I had with the lace, oh, by the way, the little issues I had with the legs were all caused by me. I have to count as I go.
That comes up a lot in your work.
Yes, it
because
does.
she tries to watch TV,
Yes.
sometimes in a foreign language while she's knitting. That's not conducive to
No.
successful knitting when you're doing something where the numbers really matter.
Oh yeah, and this lace, it has to line up, and in the middle section it shifts one stitch, so I have to move all the stitch markers in the middle of the repeat.
Oh
yeah, but it still maintains the same number. So I know that if I have that X number within each stitch marker, I'm good. But on the back, I'm just purling back, and there's yarn overs. So what I noticed I was doing was, because I wasn't counting on the back, I was just, purling back. Sometimes I would pick up an extra stitch because, sometimes things look a little funny and you might knit an extra stitch. I was doing that and I would end up with too many stitches, but I wouldn't know about it until the next row. And the next row, I'd be like, what happened?
That was happening with my mosaic. If you make a mistake in this row, you don't find out about it till the next row.
No. But the solution I came up with for that was, on the back side where I'm only purling, I just count in between each stitch marker. And if I have my magic number of stitches, I know I've picked them up correctly. And I know right away in that row. I'm not like a row above or a row below, or sometimes 2 rows. Sometimes it gives you grace and it won't tell you for 2 rows. It's like, yeah, let me mess with her.
I don't think your knitting's plotting against
sometimes,
you. But see, sometimes stitches be tripping.
Sometimes stitches be tripping. That's kind of starting to grow on me. So all of that was settled. I'm cruising along. I am knitting this lace. I'm counting my stitches. Crystal says I'm sounding like I'm casting a spell, because I think I'm trying to count unobtrusively.
It's just a lot of self-vocalizing.
I think it's very unobtrusive.
It's not as unobtrusive as you think.
Yeah, it's more obtrusive than I suspected. So I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah. I went back to my method that I got from what's her name? What is her name? I'll put it in the description bar. I can't remember. Nitty Natty, yes. Okay. I saw how many inches of this thing I would need to knit, and I calculated out how much I'd have to knit each day to stay on schedule. And I'm on schedule. I'm a little ahead of schedule. Yeah. I had a little extra time one day, so I was like, let me grind it out. If I start out 3 inches ahead, it'll be good for the day I have to miss. So I'm doing it, right? And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I need a little something. I need a little something to make this my own. So I decide I'm going to bead it a little bit. Beads and lace just go together. So I got my swatch out again, and I had some beads upstairs. So I decided, you know what? Let me just test them out. Let me try out some beads on this thing.
And you should have gone for high contrast, though.
You know what? I'll show you the full piece, because I think that's the wrong one. Okay. I tried out several different beads. I knew I only wanted one in each, at the apex of each kind of like flame. And at first I did go for the darker one just to kind of make it lower impact. I went for a purpley green one. I have a set of beads that's like 3 different colors. I was going to try that, but I didn't care for it. I finally settled on the bright blue beads, and I was surprised that I really liked that one, because once I did it on the real piece, I really like how they look all together, and it's going to take up the entire front. So I didn't think I needed a lot of contrast. I think when it catches the light, because there's going to be so many of them over time, that
right now it's just going to
markers
are distracting.
I know. Let me see if I can flip them to the back. I know. Right now there's a lot of stitch markers, but let me hold that up so you guys can see. It's going to be, and I wanted it to be more subtle so
that's subtle.
I could wear it. It won't be like a strict dress up type of thing. but it's going to have a little something extra to it. And I do love how they just catch the light very gently. But you got to picture it. This thing is going to be, all the way up on front and back. So it's going to be quite a number of beads. So what am I going to tell you about knitting the lace? Mark out your repeats. Mark out your repeats so that as soon as you as soon as you make a mistake, pretty much within a few stitches, you'll know exactly where it is. Also, I am putting in a lifeline once I did a full repeat vertically, and I'm putting it in an all, I think just a plain knit row. So it's going to be easy to pick up those stitches. Now, once I'm sure that everything below it is correct and I finish a next repeat, I'm going to pull it out and put it in again. And I am sewing the beads on after the fact because these beads actually have very small holes.
Yeah.
And this is worsted weight yarn. So I wouldn't be able to use these beads if I had, if I was planning to knit them in. But what I like about that is that I can just, instead of having to stop and place a bead in my knitting, I can just sew them all on at once, one after the other. So it's actually a very quick way to get the beads in. So that's where I'm at.
So you're going to do the beading as you go?
Yeah.
Or are you going to do the whole front?
I'm doing the beading as I go. So when I finish the entire repeat, I just sew the beads on in that repeat because now I know everything is correct. Everything is lining up properly. And I can just put the bead on as the finishing touch. And what I do is I string like 3 needles and sew on the beads. When the thread runs out on that, I just pick up another threaded needle, sew on the bead, and keep it moving. But that's where I'm at. Well, and you can follow along with the make along using the hashtag #FirstFallNow2022. Go me. I'm going to even put it up on screen. Well, I was going to, but I made my screen too big. There we go.
Okay.
So that's going well. I'm really happy with it, and I love the way it feels.
As y'all know, I only work on one thing at a time, so I'm still just cranking out my handkerchief hand top. However, the other night I got into my head that I might want to crochet socks. I have history with socks. I tried to make a sock once. It actually wasn't going badly. It was maybe it's either the Riley sock or the Saunders sock from the Crochet Project. And I made the heel and then I had the whole foot left to do, and I was just like, I don't want to. And then it was like, and when I finished this, I have to do all of this again because 2 feet. So I just quit. I just quit on the sock. I just didn't continue it. But I was thinking about like sock making and how like it's a very practical thing to make, and it uses like small amounts of yarn, and why ever not, right? They're supposed to be like warm and wonderful, and everyone who makes their own socks is like, I love them. I'll never wear store-bought socks again. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this sock thing again. Again, it wasn't even going badly. I have a book by Ron Strong. It's I don't know. It'll be anything. It's a sock book. It might be step-by-step socks or step into making socks or something like that. Anyway, so the first pattern in the book is like just a very simple cuff down sock. And I started it. See? Okay. And she's actually very cute. I never did slip stitch ribbing before. I've only done single crochet through the back loop, but I think that's actually very cute. It's very pretty kind of ribbing, and I would never have done it had it not been for the sock pattern. And I'm using the blue yarn is just a basic Regia sock yarn. And in this multicolor, I think this is an Araucania. These are both yarns that I just had in my stash. When I tried to make a sock before, I actually used this blue yarn previously. I think these two colors look so freaking cute together.
Yeah.
And you're getting like kind of this diagonal effect, and that's really just the yarn. That's how it's pooling. I'm not doing that, and it's really, really cute. But I'm deriving zero enjoyment from this. And I'm so confused.
You should have seen her. She was miserable. I was like, dang.
Like, here I am.
Step into crochet?
Yes, that is it. Step into crochet. And I forget what it's called, but it's just the first sock pattern that's in the book. And I don't know. I like the yarn. I love these two yarns together. These two and a neutral, like a cream colored yarn. The three of them together was supposed to be a shawl. And then I decided to try socks. I don't know why I can't get into sock making. I was like really excited, really enthused. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a sock maker. Apparently I'm not.
You know what? I say if you hate it, don't do it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, but I don't understand why.
I don't know.
When I'm crocheting, I'm always really excited about wearing the thing I make. And so if I'm making a shawl, if I'm making a sweater, if I'm making a skirt or a dress, I'm just like, ooh, I can't wait to wear this thing. I don't feel like that about the socks for some reason. For some reason, I'm like kind of resentful.
Yeah, I got that.
I'm crocheting, and I don't understand.
You seemed a little
why. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But yeah, that's just what it is. But I'm glad I rediscovered this yarn because I still do want to make something out of it. But it ain't gonna stop.
Okay. All right.
When I just write pros and cons down on paper, there's so many more pros than cons for sock making. But the big con is I just kind of hate it for some reason.
You know what? Life is too short to spend your time making something
4,000 weeks
that you hate.
But is there a thing like that? Like you just hate making it? It's not because it's particularly difficult or whatever, but for some reason that thing, it's not rewarding for you to make it. I'm wondering if this is just me or what's going on, because there's nothing wrong with this. I was just going in the round. I was doing my leg, and eventually I was going to get to the heel. But I just had no desire to continue. I'm just
why am I doing this?
And they're so small. You would think my handkerchief hem top is taking forever. You would think that would be putting me off more than the sock, because the sock could be finished rather quickly. But I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I had a bad sock making experience in a past life, but but I have zero desire to make socks. And I have so much technically sock yarn that I thought yeah, I could get into that, making socks with my sock yarn. But
You know what? I feel the same way about seed stitch. I will reject a project outright if there's too much seed stitch in it. And I see people knit things that has fields of seed stitch, and I'm like, Jesus, how did you do that?
Wait, don't ask me why this one particular category of crochet just doesn't work for me, but it doesn't. So
okay.
That's my second time trying to get into making socks, and I'm still not into making socks, but it's okay. It's okay. We're just gonna move on. We'll just use all our pretty sock yarn for something non-sockish.
Exactly.
But what's that about? If you have experienced the same thing, please share, because I'm literally just confused. I am. There's no reason for me to not enjoy making socks so very much, but I just
Look, you were so miserable. I was like, stop. You ever feel the waves of misery coming off of somebody? I felt the wave, and I was like,
Don't ask me to explain it. I don't get
Couldn't
it.
tell.
But congrats to y'all out there who have finished a sock, either knitting or crochet. Because, wow.
I mean, you didn't even get second sock syndrome. You got first sock syndrome.
I've never finished a sock. I can't get through it.
That's okay. You don't have to make socks. I declare it.
I still might try leg warmers though, because I think that'll be fun. And I like wearing in the fall and winter. I am the leg warmer girl, so that might be what I do instead of socks.
There you go. I do want to talk about our next giveaway. Well, let's talk about our past giveaway. Our winner never got in touch with us, Laura Blair. If you're out there, get in touch with us. We would love to send you a lovely package of things. So what we're going to do, and I will announce a new winner next week if I don't hear from her this week. We're going to choose again and see what happens. But in the meantime, we're still trying to build up our subscribers. We're trying to get to 600 subscribers. And I'm putting together a new gift basket. And the first things that are going in there are these two lovely, lovely skeins.
Is this my cute? Oh,
no, this is
nice.
It's also. Can I have that bag?
Oh.
Thank you. This is Juniper Moon Farm Nev, and it is 100% cotton. And like Crystal said, it's really nice. It's 100 grams, 222 yards, and they recommend a US 6 to 7 knitting needle or a K through M hook. It seems like a lot, but you know it's a chainette that fluffs up.
Yeah, so okay. I feel like ball bands in general recommend too large a hook.
I think so.
I don't know what that's about. So. Swatch.
Yeah, swatch it. I think you're gonna like it. It feels wonderful.
It does. It's weird. I mean, it's a worsted weight cotton chainette, but it feels different from Cumulus.
Yes. It doesn't have that velvety feel that Cumulus has.
But look at that.
Mm-hmm. And the next skein I'm putting in is Stargazer.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
It is 70
llama, right?
Yeah, 70% llama, 30% silk. Give that a feel.
I use Stargazer brush, which is a worsted weight version of this, to make a top, and I really liked it. But this stuff, I wanted to get my hands on it. It's a sport weight, and I love sport weight. I absolutely love sport weight. It's like a nice little break from fingering weight, but it's still not too big and bulky.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna take. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. You gotta release though. Release. So Stargazer. Okay. 100 grams, 218 yards, and they recommend somewhere between an E and a 7 for crocheters, and somewhere between a 3 and a 5 for the knitters among. Look at the sheen. I think that's from the silk. Oh, love that. So
I really like Unicorn Farm. It's honestly one of my favorite
yarns. Yeah. I love the blends that they come up with for their yarns, and the structures are good because I think that Nev is gonna knit. I know it's gonna knit up really light, just like. Okay, what else do you have, Crystal? You have any more? You have any pips?
Just my shrug, my big long cocoon shrug.
Oh,
it's supposed to be for first fall, but I didn't start it yet because I'm still one thing at a time, and I'm finishing up the never-ending handkerchief on top. So I'm gonna get a late start on first fall, but I should be able to finish by September 21st because my project is gonna be in DK weight. So,
have you decided on how you're going to accomplish the plaid that you're talking about?
Not yet. I have to put some time into that.
And do some swatching.
I have so much to do. I was just watching this thing yesterday on YouTube. It was funny because I was watching a video about productivity, and this guy was talking about his notebook system and how he uses that for productivity. But then I watched this girl's video who was talking about like maybe there's too much emphasis on productivity and that maybe we should all be like slowing down our pace and not trying to finish more and more in less and less time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm torn. It was like I watched the two videos back to back, and they were both
the opposite.
They were both me. They were both this person who wants to just get more and more done in less and less time, and this person just wants to like kind of slow down and appreciate the process and not like I have a number in my head of like how many garments I'd like to make in a year, but I'm trying to not have a number in my head of how many garments I'd like to make in a year.
I don't have that at all. Wow.
How do you not?
Oh, how do you do? Oh,
wow. Is it just me? I do. The number I tell people is one garment a month. That's a lie. I'd like to. I don't know why she's laughing right now.
The number I tell people. Okay.
Right, it's one a month every 12 a year. But the number I'd actually like to finish is probably 2. I'm lying, it's 3.
Yikes.
But 2 is what I think is doable. Like in my fantasy, it would be 3, but 2 is what I think is actually achievable. But, you know, depending on what you make, because I'd have to like vary. Some things would take longer, some things would take less time. But yeah, because I'm thinking about my wardrobe now and building this specific, you know, crochet me-made wardrobe and how many things I would like to add to my wardrobe in a given year, because I have almost completely stopped buying clothes from stores. Most things I like. Look, I'm not making socks and underwear. We've discussed this. Yeah. So I still buy those things, and probably a little bit of outerwear. But this calendar year, since January 1st, I bought one store-bought garment, and I just bought it like a week ago. It's a dress from Timberland, really cute, had to have it, and it was on sale. But there's no way I could make as many things a year as I could buy, but I think I'm still comparing to how much I used to buy, and that's making me feel pressure to make more. So it's not even about like what I'm seeing on YouTube or what other people are doing. I'm comparing it to something that doesn't compare, which is just buying things that are already made. They're finished. They're done. Like they don't require any work after I get them home. I'm
going to suggest that you adjust your expectation down.
I have my phony one a month number.
Right. Make that the real number.
Oh.
Because that might even be too much because you put a lot into your making.
I don't think 1 a month is too much.
Look at your handkerchief.
Is an outlier.
Look at your handkerchief.
She's an outlier because the fact is I'm adding more fabric to get this particular style. If I just wanted to make a tank top that fit me or was just, you know, had a little bit of positive ease, I would have finished this already. Yeah. I had to I'm creating a lot of extra fabric so that I get that handkerchief effect. That wouldn't necessarily, that's not typical of my project. Right. I'm making things to just fit me that aren't, you know, going to be this oversized. I can do them a lot quicker. Yeah. So handkerchief dress top is an outlier. If I'm not making all things like that, right, 1 a month is realistic. It's doable.
Okay. But yeah, I think you should come down from the 2. The 1 should be the real number then. Because you know what? I think if you're making more of your garments, at least the way you make garments, the way I make garments, you're making a higher quality thing than the thing you would have bought.
I'm trying to.
And quality takes time. And
it does, but I feel like you have to put effort into it. It doesn't always have to take like a lot. For me, making one thing for 6 months, I don't think I could even sustain my interest in it for that long. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to take 6 months to make things, but it feels like 2 a month. It feels pressurized. It does. It absolutely. But I keep thinking, but if I did it, oh man, I'd be so happy.
Yeah. But then once you did that, would you be satisfied with 2 a month, or would
I
the
think
voice
so.
in your head say, well, if you want to be happy
If
again,
2 is good,
and you want to be
3 is
happy
better.
again. You know, I saw this discussion with these plastic surgeons about people who get fillers and why they don't see that they've distorted their faces. And one of the doctors said that what happens to a lot of people is that they don't, when they first get the first filler, they feel they look so much better. They're happy for about a week, like ecstatically happy. And then
the high falls off.
Yeah, the high falls off, and you just go back to whatever your normal level is. And they think to achieve that high again.
But that's a whole different issue, because in that case, your lips wasn't the problem or your cheeks wasn't the problem. That's why filling them can't solve what it is you're feeling. But
if you get that same kind of high from completing something, you're going to push yourself to complete more and more and more.
No, because it's not always that I need a new thing. Having this wardrobe now of things I can choose from and go back to wear is a substitute high.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Wearing it over and over, that is also,
I know, because I was pretty stoked when I put this on. I was like, yeah.
Even this little foolishness that I just throw it on sometimes, I love it.
Yeah.
I freaking love it.
And I think that's the other thing. If you are a garment maker, you know, that's the other part that you get, that high from that little hit of dopamine. Like, oh, where am I? Yes, I did make it.
But I don't know where I'm gonna like end up in terms of. I don't think I'll ever be able to let go of a number and just make, and just make things and not care about how many things I've made. Yeah. But I think I can set a reasonable number for myself.
Okay, that's a good start.
And that's the best I can do.
That's a good start.
For now.
Because I never want, like, I see people making videos where they say, I made a 5-piece wardrobe in a day, or in 4 hours, or I sewed 72 items in 72 minutes. And I'm like, and I never want to be in that place, because I don't see what good you're doing yourself. And some people also see that as fast fashion invading artisan clothing.
It gets into a weird space, though, just because now there's an audience. And it's not necessarily that people... I don't know that those same people would be doing that if there was no audience.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, too.
When you're competing with other people, you're competing for attention on YouTube and TikTok and what have you. That spurs you on. And I have gotten so much better, I think, about not letting what other people doing influence my making. So that's not as much of a driver for me. Like I said, I was comparing to my shopping habit, not to what other people are making. But I don't think that having just a goal, that concrete goal, is a problem if the goal is reasonable for you.
Yeah.
So for me, if it's 1 a month, it's 12 items a year. If for someone else, it's 6 items a year. That's fine. I don't think it means you're pushing yourself too hard just to have a number in mind.
I don't think so.
I don't know. You all tell us what you think.
Yeah. Do you have a number in mind for things you want to make in a year? I genuinely don't, but
that's so weird to me.
You know what happens with me, though? I tend to see something and get completely obsessed with it, and I never know what it might be. So it could be like this. When I saw this in the book, I bought the book because this was in it, and I was like, I'm going to make that. I felt the same way about Nymphala, because I was like,
that Nora magazine's been good to you.
It has been. It has been. But that's kind of how my choices get to work. And what I want to do with my choices is really look more at creating wardrobe rather than creating individual pieces that don't necessarily relate to anything else in my wardrobe.
That's a whole other conversation we could have, because I've been thinking a lot, because I keep saying I want to build my made wardrobe, and now I'm starting to think about what exactly that means.
Right.
And I'm thinking about working with a color palette, except I have so much yarn that's not in my palette. That's just going to get grandfathered and we won't talk about it.
Exactly.
But although what I was thinking, like, let's say I have a variegated I could stripe or color block or do some sort of color work that will also use the colors that are in my palette, just so those outlier yarns start to make more sense with the rest of my work. So as you see, I've been thinking about this. I feel like that could be like a whole conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am starting to think about what exactly does it mean to build a made wardrobe. There's a certain number of items, and do I, I want to be able to make items for all seasons, for all different types of weather. And there's a lot to consider when you start thinking of it as like, a wardrobe as opposed to just making individual projects.
Exactly. It's like
it
this
gets a little
piece.
overwhelming.
It's like this piece, right? Just because I finished the last stitch, woven the ends, and blocked it, it wasn't finished. Because once I wore it, I was like, I had issues with how it laid. But you see it's laying flat now because I went back after the fact and put it and saw that ribbon. And I think once you're at the place where you're actually making wardrobe items, they actually take longer because you're going to go back.
How they wear.
Yeah, and do things
that
like that.
requires different choices.
Yeah. Oh, no.
It's just, I can't believe where I am now in terms of my crochet, because it was just, I used to churn out scarves like nobody's business. And it was just a thing to do with my hands, really. It was just a fun activity, and it was something that everyone in the household did.
Yeah.
So I just kind of fell into it, and that's all it was. And now it's just become like something else for me, something that I enjoy so much more and that I'm even more excited about now. But it just takes up such a bigger space in my life, and I can't believe like this is where I am now.
Yeah. But I say you have to start somewhere. And if scarf after scarf after scarf, and to be fair, you made all different kinds of scarves.
I did. And that was, I didn't realize at the time, but that was how I learned to read patterns, because I used a Stitch dictionary, and I would just pick a pattern and make a scarf from it. And when I started my first crochet garment, I was not at all confused about the pattern. I was able to follow that pattern without any assistance. I had some fit issues, but when she was finished, she was a jacket. I had buttons, I had belt loops, I had a collar, the whole nine. I completed the construction of the garment because I had secretly learned how to read patterns without realizing it.
Yeah. And you saw me go through my ugly hat stage.
Yeah, and she got a lot better.
Yeah.
That first successful hat was like the whole family celebrated.
We did. Because, child, the hats. I'm going to have to dig out some of my ugly hats. But I have a couple of them left.
I feel like maybe hats weren't the place to start because you have to work in the round. And that's a whole other thing.
Maybe.
I think you should have started with flat things first.
Well, my very, very first thing, it was mostly flat. But it rippled. It had some issues, but I say you have to start somewhere, and
definitely
wherever it is you start, that's a good place, because where you start is where your mind works, and I think you'll develop more understanding just because wherever you start, it made sense to you to start there. Yeah. So speaking of creating a me-made wardrobe, you saw a little something.
So let me tell you. Last week, was it that we talked about the two guys with knitting.com?
Yeah.
In looking for more information about that online, I came across the Craft Snark Reddit forum, and I recently visited Reddit again, because honestly, Reddit, I don't know how long it's been around, but I never paid any mind to it.
Neither, really.
And I would hear about how Reddit forums got so crazy. It was some place that I would like stumble on accidentally. I usually ended up on Reddit, to tell you the truth, if I was looking up a specific TV show or movie.
Yeah.
And I would usually come across a Reddit forum of people talking about that show or movie, and I would dip in, read some stuff, and then leave. I've never like posted anything on a Reddit forum. But the fact that Craft Snark was there made me interested in going back and checking it out. And then Craft Snark referenced that there's just a crochet Reddit, there's a knitting Reddit, and there's a yarn one. So I was reading the unpopular opinions thread on the crochet Reddit, and a lot of it was what you would expect. Some people like hate amigurumi, some people love amigurumi, but one thing that came up was people saying that crochet garments are just all ugly, or they call them wearables. Crochet clothes are all just ugly. Crochet is not for making garments. One person said that, like, her rule for herself is knitting is for drape, crochet is for structure, because there is this very persistent belief, drives me nuts, that crochet doesn't drape. Mm. There's no reason
Patently
for
false.
that to be true. Like, kind of, if you just think about it, it's just string, and you can make string drape, and then it just drape in crochet is the same as drape in knitting. It is all about the choices you make in terms of fiber, hook size, and stitch pattern. Double crochet will drape more than single crochet. I mean, it's really not that complicated. But I'm going to make a bold statement with my own unpopular opinion. If you think that you cannot make clothing out of crochet, you're not a knowledgeable crocheter. You have a lot to learn, not only in terms of how to work with and manipulate your yarn to get the effects that you want, to get the drape, to get the fit, whatever it is, but you're also not knowledgeable enough about the designs that are out there. And you probably spend a lot of time on Instagram or Pinterest, and you think that is all of crochet. Look at some of the OG designers. Look at Doris Chan and Lily Chin and Dora Orenstein and
Kristen Umdahl,
Melissa Leitman, Shannon Mullet Bowlesby, whose name is different now. Still goes by Shannon though.
She's not Mullet Bowlesby anymore?
No, I just came across the new name and I can't remember it.
We'll check, see what it was. What it is.
But if you look at books, I would say look at crochet pattern books instead of just the designs you see online. Just because what you see online, it's people at all different levels of experience and people who have different amounts of crochet knowledge, and they're making what they know how to make at that time in their crochet careers. And some of those designers, you know, if you see them a year or two down the road, when they've learned more, some of them go back and even adjust their old patterns. Sometimes you get a message on Ravelry saying, you know, changes have been made to this pattern. But also, you're likely limiting yourself to crochet from the English-speaking world. And if you look at Latin America, if you look at Russia and Eastern Europe, if you look at Scandinavia, they're doing some stunning, absolutely stunning things with crochet. So to say that just kind of as a rule, crochet doesn't drape or crochet is unsuitable for making garments, you are lacking in knowledge about crochet. And it's what bothers me most about it, because you know what, whatever other people say, I'm going to make what I make and it's going to be fine. But I worry that you are influencing the opinions of others who will come across that statement and just believe it to be true.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that people who crochet feel like they have to learn how to knit if they want to make clothes because crochet is not suitable for clothing. So expand your universe a little bit and learn a little bit more before you make these declarative statements.
Because some of the most beautiful crochet patterns, they're coming out of Latin America and Eastern Europe. That is it. Matter of fact, one of the things that we say all the time when we're looking at Pinterest or when we're looking at, you know, just designs, you see the design and it's a gorgeous, just wearable piece that looks like you could have just bought it anywhere. Yep, that's from someone named Ekaterina. What, like, we actually say, what's Ekaterina been up to?
Because,
what's she been doing?
Yes, I don't understand why crochet has such a bad rap when it comes to clothing, especially now. Look, I largely miss this era, but looking back, I see that the 70s were a rough time for crochet. I get it. I get it. You know, there was a lot of like fishnet bell bottoms and stuff happening. Okay, I'm gonna give you that. But that's not what crochet, first of all, that's not all crochet was at that time.
No.
And that's not all crochet is today. And honestly, if you go back further than the 70s to like the 60s and 50s and even the 40s and 30s, you're going to see some beautiful,
Dresses,
elegant
suits.
Yes.
Coats.
So it is really just speaking from a place of very limited knowledge, and anytime someone says that, I feel like you're outing yourself. Like, you might be one of those people who really just makes the same thing over and over again, because you haven't expanded your knowledge. You're making completely flawed assumptions. So I would say just look around a little bit more, because there's no functional difference between knitting clothing and crocheting clothing.
No. If let's say you were a crocheter that wanted to start making garments, who would you suggest as a place to start if you've never done garment construction or anything before?
Shannon Bowlesby, and I would specifically recommend the book Urban Edge. Mm-hmm. Very simple shapes, but first of all, really great patterns. They're written well, charts everything. If different stitch patterns are used in one garment, there's a chart for each stitch pattern. That book, Urban Edge by Shannon Bowlesby, which is probably the name that will still be on the book if you buy it. And The Crochet Closet by Lisa Gentry. That one, I don't know if it's still in print, but you can buy a digital copy, I think, directly from Leisure Arts, maybe. So those are the two books I would say if you've never made a garment before, they're a great place to learn.
And if you want to see better looking garments, if you're going to use Ravelry and do a Ravelry search, set your search parameters for the lower weight yarns. So avoid the chunkies, avoid the worsteds, unless you have a specific purpose for using yarn that heavy. You will see just more fashionable, more stylish, better looking stuff at the lower weights. So you don't have to go down to 2.25 millimeters, but an E-hook.
But yeah,
yeah.
And while we're throwing out unpopular opinions, let me just say, telling me that my crochet is so pretty you thought it was knitting is not a compliment.
Yeah.
Stop saying that to people.
Yeah.
It's hella rude. Okay.
That doesn't even look like crochet.
But I would probably be spending some more time on the Reddits, just because it's so many different conversations happening, and I found that really interesting. And sometimes people are just really, there's a woman who just posted this hilarious screed about moths that got into her yarn, and she's mad that they didn't nibble the cheap stuff. They went straight for her La Bien-Aimée. So
I'd be mad about that too. Okay.
So I actually, it's going to be a time sink. It's one of those things, because you think, oh, I'll just do this a few minutes, but it's just interesting to find so many different opinions, and I had no idea that was going on. So I might check out the whole Reddit thing. We'll see.
But there's places to start if you never really considered making crocheted garments in your crocheter. Give it a try. Start with something simple, and I think you're gonna like it. I have told many a crocheter, you do not have to knit if you want to make garments. Totally not necessary.
Yeah, so that was diving into the interwebs recently.
Well, you know what? I think I'm done.
Yeah.
You done? knit along, crochet along with us. The hashtag is FirstFallMal 2022, and all the places you use hashtags. You can follow along and see what everybody's doing. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. See you next week.